And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
The other day I was wearing one of my favorite ties, my smiley face tie to church, and when I got to church, the kids said, "Hey, you have an emoji tie." And I said, "Yeah, I guess." Emoji seems to be a very recent term. I haven't heard it much more than a year or so ago, and it is essentially the little symbols that people type in texting. Now, this is something that I don't get. I do like using little smiley faces because sometimes it's hard to get emotions through a text message or an email, but I'm a little kind of befuddled at people who use them to do complete messages with them and all sorts of symbols. But I guess that just means I'm an old fogey now because a lot of people like them, so it is no surprise to me that they've made a game about this, emoji cards. Now, more of a surprise maybe is this card is endorsed by Mark Cuban and Nick Cannon. Mark Cuban says, "This game is fun. I'm glad I'm involved with emoji cards." Nick Cannon says, "I'm so excited to be part of emoji cards. Its success lies within its simplicity." Yeah, those weren't generated quotes at all. Huh? Well, whatever. I am interested in the concept. It's a party game that uses cards like this. I kind of had an eye on it when it was on Kickstarter. Now that it's published, I was eager to see it. Here it is. At the beginning of the game, you're going to place 40 random emoji cards all over the table. There is a huge pile of them. The different color backgrounds are the different categories, but you can see there's plenty of these. Some of these I recognize, and there are many different here. Now, this card is not supposed to be in this deck. This is from the question deck. And so on your turn, one person from the team is going to pull one of these cards. And the top here is history and places, and then they give the hint historical figures, and they're going to try to get people to guess the different folks on the card. And so that one is history and places. For example, here's games and sports, games that kids play. Here's another games and sports, that's board and card games, although this one self-servingly has emoji cards on it. Let's show you some other ones. Here we got history and places. These are stores and restaurants. Pro sports teams, famous athletes, 90s songs, historical figures, etc., etc. Now, each player has one of these, so that you can use this. You can use this for like sounds like, or this is where it's located on Earth. It's a man or a female. There's 3 words in it. First word, and you have these symbols you can point to. But for the most part, you're going to try in 90 seconds to get people to guess whatever the clue might be. So, for example, maybe the clue is hopscotch, the word you're trying to get people. So here, I can totally ignore everything on the cards, and I could do something like this with the cards, and then take this guy here and be like, I can't make sound effects, and then maybe people would guess hopscotch from that. For the game telephone, well, I don't see a telephone out here. That'd be a pretty fast clue, but maybe I can use this party hat and put it there and have it ring and maybe make it like she's talking on the phone. To get someone to do double Dutch, I'd probably end up using this guy a lot for several of these things. Red Rover, I might point to the red on the different things and get people to guess red, and then point to the dog. Well, red dog might not work, but maybe people would get the idea that it's Red Rover. You can pick things up. You can turn things around, like this might actually be a telescope on someone's eye when you see it. The star could be twinkling. The hands could be clapping. The book could be flipping pages. You really can make motions with them. You're just not allowed to make sounds, and you can't do motions yourself without the cards. You're allowed to do motions as long as the cards are making the motions for you. Like here's an explosion. I could do all that to show an explosion on the card, or this guy is smiling, or maybe now he's the sun. The stuff on the cards doesn't have to be what you use, and you're allowed to be as creative as you want. And so players are going to be guessing these, and for each card that they get correct, so maybe they guessed Up and Little Mermaid and Space Jam, that's 1 point, but it's 2 points for the 4th and the 5th one of the ones that you get on here. So if you get all 5 of them in 90 seconds, which I don't know that I've seen that happen, you would get 7 points. and then it's the next team's turn to go. And the first team to get to 40 points is the winner. When you are done with your round, you're going to take out any cards that you used, and those cards will be gone, and then you'll be replacing them with new cards. So that way there's always this constant flow of cards, although you'll probably end up being mad because the card that you wanted to use is the card that just got taken out. Anyway, that's how you play emoji cards. Now, emoji cards is an interesting concept, and there's one part of it that I really like, and that's using the cards pretty much to do anything. I have a flag that's flapping. I can point to a color on it. Like I said, the star could be twinkling, or this rocket ship I can make fly, and I can use them as different shapes than they're intended to be. Like this is a toilet, but now upside down, it might be part of a microscope, and I enjoyed that. There's a good swath of images that there is to use, and they're constantly changing and evolving, and using them creatively is really useful. Now, if you have people who aren't very creative, this game can grind to a halt. Like, oh, I'm trying to get people to guess this, and I don't see a star out there, and I'm supposed to have star in the title. I don't know what to do. The more creative the group is, the more fun the game is going to be. Now, this game uses images and colors and things to get people to guess something. This sounds remarkably similar to another game that was nominated for an award last year, and that game is Concept. Now, while Emoji Cards is not the same as Concept, I will say that for a group of adults who are looking for this style game, this game is very superior. You can look at my Concept review for how that game works. I like that one better, and I think there's more depth and more clarity to it. However, for kids, they definitely want to play this. My kids want to constantly play this because, first of all, they love the idea of emojis, and they also love the idea of getting words. My main problem with the game, and this doesn't make it a bad game, the game is fine, but I would have redone the clue cards. The clue cards are very pop culture oriented. Now, maybe that's because people who are using emojis are very pop culture, and there's some history cards and stuff, but there's a lot of other things that could have been in here, and there's not. And it's also very much a thing of today, right? This is stuff that's on TV today and movies of today and so on. And again, that's not a bad thing. The problem is, I always play with, there's a variant in here, I always play with that where it says you can refuse a card. Because you might get a card and like, I don't know any of these movies, or I have never seen any of these TV shows, or neither has anyone on your team. Because pop culture is that heavily into the game, if you're not a huge fan of pop culture, I would have preferred to maybe put 2 categories per card. They have room for that. And then you pick one of the 2 categories and go for that one. And one of the categories could be pop culture, and the other category would be not. And that way it's the best of both worlds. Despite that, the game itself, like I said, they picked a good giant chunk of these emoji cards to have in the game. You're going to have 40 different ones out there, or more or less. You really could play with any number you want. But you have a big chunk out there. You're going to be constantly changing them out over the course of the game. There will likely be a moment in the game where someone does something remarkably clever with the cards, and everyone's like, wow, that was a great clue. And then there's going to be a moment where someone's doing this, and you're like, what are you trying to tell us? And when they're done, everyone will go, oh, or they'll go, oh, you idiot. The same sort of stuff that happens in any party game, gestures and charades and all that sort of thing. But I thought this to be fun. My kids even more so, and that is who I think the target audience is, emoji cards. Dice Tower Judgment approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door. Shut the door.